So UFC 290 takes place this weekend, Volkanovski versus Rodriguez, and I'm going to be going through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, and giving my prediction and breakdown of every single fight on the card. Starting off with the early prelim opener of Kamuela Kirk versus Esteban Ribovics. I'll be taking Esteban Ribovics in this matchup. I think he's just a little bit better on the feet. I think that's where this fight's going to take place. Camilo Kirk's coming off a submission loss to Damon Jackson, who really isn't that good in my opinion at the UFC level. And Esteban Ribovics is coming off a debut. Damon Jackson, who's a featherweight as well, by the way, and Esteban Ribovics is coming off a decision loss to Lawler, which he could have won. It was a very close fight back in March on UFC 285, and he did very well in that fight as well. He showed some good striking, good counters with the hooks. He was landing some really good hooks, good body hooks in that matchup as well. And I think those are going to be open here against Kamuela Kirk, who doesn't. Neither of these guys have much experience. Yeah, Kirk, as I said, submission loss to Damon Jackson, who's a featherweight. This fight's taking place at lightweight, so it's just not something I want to see on a resume when you're going to be fighting a more powerful, bigger guy as well. So I think Esteban Ribovics should get this one done on the feet. I think he might get a KO in the first or second round. So I'm taking Ribovics to beat Kamuela Kirk to start off the prelims. Moving on to the second fight on the card, Jesus Aguilar versus Shannon Ross. I'll be taking Jesus Aguilar in this matchup. I think again, just a bit better. He's got a very short reach, a short arm span, but I just don't rate Shannon Ross that highly in this matchup. He's coming off a loss to Clayton Rodriguez. Got KO'd in like a minute in that matchup. Coming off a loss before that as well. Like I just don't like. He's not the guy that I think is going to do much out of that CKB team. I think Jesus Aguilar. He's coming off a loss to Tatsuro Taira, but that's not a bad loss to have on your resume. Like it's Tatsuro Taira. So I think he's just going to be a little bit better in this matchup. Like if you look at his record, I'll just check it right now. Um, he even in the Tyra fight, he didn't get completely dominated. He got submitted in the first round, but like he had a few moments in that fight. Shannon Ross has just shown an ability to really get kind of like bit overwhelmed on the feet and get kind of attacked on the feet. But yeah, Jesus Aguilar submission win, decision, submission, submission, submission. So his ground skills are what I think is going to get it done in this matchup. And then if you're looking at Shannon Ross's record, he's lost to Clayton Rodriguez, lost to Vinicius Salvador, um, beat Donovan Freelo, lost to Steve Urseg. Like apart from that, it's decision wins and a few TKOs. But I don't see him TKOing Aguilar. I think Aguilar's shown to be relatively durable, and I think he's going to win probably a decision in this matchup, or maybe get a submission. That could happen. But moving on to the third fight on the card, Cameron Saaiman versus Terrance Mitchell. It's a pretty easy pick to make. I'll be taking Cameron Saaiman in this fight. Um, he's the up and coming fighter. He's the better fighter. He's coming off. He's undefeated in the UFC. He's coming off a few wins. Fought last March. Looked really good in that matchup. Terrance Mitchell making his UFC debut, I believe. Lost on the Contender Series. Got knocked out. I think it was by Kai France. But I just don't see him having like that high level of skill to beat Cameron Saaiman, who I think is just a much better fighter. This fight's a bantamweight. Terrance Mitchell's previously fought at flyweight, so he's probably going to have a little bit of a size disadvantage. I think he might have the reach, but I think he's going to struggle with the physicality of Saaiman and the technique on the feet. Who's shown really to be really good in his last fights. One in March, one last December as well over Stephen Kozlow, one in March over Martinez, I think it was. Yeah, he's an up and comer. He's a promising fighter, and I think he should get this one done quite comfortably. I could see him getting a decision. I'd like to say he gets a TKO, but he hasn't shown a hell of a lot of finishing ability in his last few fights, so I think he might just win a decision here. But moving on, Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. Another relatively easy pick to make. I'll be taking Petrino in this matchup. He's a really powerful guy. Martin Prachnio's been knocked out before. He's never shown to be a really good fighter on the feet. He's coming off coming off a win against William Knight, but I just don't rate William Knight that highly, if I'm being honest. He just stood there and just let himself get hit in the legs and in the face that whole fight. and I do not see Vitor Petrino doing that. I think he's going to really take the fight to Marcin Prachnio, and I think he's going to make it a lot harder for him, and I think he'll get a knockout in the first or second round. He's shown to have a lot of power, coming off a debut win over Anton Chikali. Um, got a bit of the debut nerves out of the way in that fight. And overall, I think he's just a better fighter than Pacquiao, more dangerous, more durable, more power. And I just don't see a really easy path for Marcin Prachnio to take to win this matchup. So I'll be taking Vitor Petrino to win. But moving on though, to the early prelim headliner, Tatsuro Taira versus who's he fighting? Edgar Chairez. I'm going to be taking Tatsuro Taira in this matchup. Again, easy pick to make. He's a big favorite here for a reason. Edgar Chairez making his UFC debut. Tatsuro Taira as he's really the prospect at flyweight. He's the guy on the come up. Obviously coming off that win over Jesus Aguilar. Had a fight cancelled against Clayton Rodriguez a few weeks ago. Definitely looking to get a win. He's young in his career as well. He's in his early 20s. And I think he's going to get a submission here. His grappling skill is really legit, and it's going to be a problem for the flyweight division. And I do see him beating Edgar Chairez quite comfortably in this fight. Chairez will probably have a bit of the physicality, bit of strength his way, but I don't think he's going to be just technically sound enough in the grappling to beat Tatsuro Taira anywhere. And I don't think he's enough of a threat on the feet to really cause him any problems. I think the stand up's going to be pretty even, but Tatsuro Taira should be good enough on the ground to get the takedown and get an early submission, I think, in the first or second round. So that's that. That's the early prelims done. But moving on to the prelims, and the opener of the prelims, Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Menifeild. This is a rematch. The two of them fought already in February at UFC 284, which I was actually at. Um, and watching that fight live, it was a really frustrating performance from Jimmy Crute. Even though I am going to pick him to win this rematch, I think in the first fight he was winning and doing really well with the grappling. He had a clear path to victory, and then he just started getting really tired and just engaged in a stand-up fight with a power puncher, and that's never going to end well for Jimmy Crute, who's never been the most menacing force on the feet. Um, but I think he should have a better game plan going into this. I think he'll attack the takedown straight away. I think he's going to be better conditioned and not gas out as quickly. And I don't think he's going to be as concerned about putting on a big show for the home crowd when he was in Australia. I think he's going to just do enough to get this one done. And I think he's going to win either a decision or could get a submission in the second, maybe in the second round, I'd say. So I'll take Jimmy Crute by submission. In that fight, though, that first fight, like he got takedowns quite easily. Alonzo Menifeild didn't really show great takedown defense, but then Crute just started gassing out of nowhere, and ended up just in a brawl on the feet, and lost the second round, I believe it was, by 10-8, and then came back and won the third. So it was a 28-28 scorecard, and he drew. Yeah, I just think Alonzo Menifield's not like that good of a fighter. Crute's clearly a better fighter on paper. Like he's got more skills than Alonzo Menifield. Um, so if he just puts them all together and fights smart and just grapples from the get go, which he should, then I think he's going to win this fight quite easily. But moving on to the second fight on the prelims, Yazmin Jauregui versus Denise Gomes. I'll be picking Jauregui in this matchup. Yazmin, she's one of the prospects in the women's divisions. What's this fight at? It's at 115. It's a strawweight. It's a strawweight fight here. She's shown to be really good in her last few fights. Looked impressive. Debuted fairly recently. But just looked really good in her last fights. Denise Gomes has shown to be like she won her last fight, looked very tough in that matchup. Wasn't favored to win, but she did enough and got a submission, I believe, which was impressive to see from her. But I'm just checking Yasmin's record. She's coming off, I think it was a decision win, and then before that, I believe she got a TKO. But a really promising fighter out of Mexico in the strawweight division, and I think she should win this matchup by decision probably, which should be good for her and good for the Mexican fans who have got a few other key fighters on this card as well. So I think she's going to win this matchup. My phone's not loading. Um, but yeah, moving up the card to I'm picking Yazmin Jauregui by decision. Moving up the card though to Jack Della Maddalena versus Joshua Harrell. Another really easy pick to make. Jack Della Maddalena should win this fight by a KO in the first round. Joshua Harrell isn't that talented of a fighter. He's undefeated, but he's not been fighting very high level opposition. He had a highlight a few weeks ago where he blast double-legged the guy out of the cage because they forgot to lock the door. But that should probably tell you what the level of promotion is that they forget to lock the cage door. So Jack Della Maddalena, he's coming off 3 or 4 first-round finishes, beat Pete Rodriguez in his debut, beat Ramazan Amir, KO'd Danny Roberts, and then submitted Randy Brown all in the first round. 3 KOs, 1 submission. He's ranked in the welterweight division. He was meant to be fighting Sean Brady, and Sean Brady's a far better opponent than Josh Harrell, who is a natural lightweight, not an actual welterweight. Who in his last fights it was at 162 pounds because the guy because he couldn't be fucked making weight, which is just not good to see. Jack Della Maddalena should absolutely starch him. He's much better on the feet. Joshua Harrell's like a bit of a grappling style, bit of boxing in there. But Jack Del Maddalena has been preparing for a grappler in Sean Brady anyway, so I think he should win this fight quite comfortably. Um, yeah, first round KO. Otherwise, it's like kind of a failed performance to be honest. Unless Joshua Hell somehow turns out better than all of his previous fights, where he's just been kind of beating cans. But yeah, this is kind of tough that this matchup fell off the Brady matchup fell off the card. Obviously, Brady had to pull out with an infection. But I think Jack Della Maddalena should just he'll be better on the feet. He's shown to be super slick in his last few fights. Get the timing down, get the distance, and he's just been catching guys very easily. Um, and I expect him to do the same thing with Josh Harrell. I think he'll spend like a minute just finding the range, and then I think he's just going to be popping that jab out there, busting up the nose of Joshua Harrell, and then he's just going to catch him with a big shot, probably a cross or a left hook, and just put him down. And I think he'll finish this fight in the first round by KO. But moving on to the prelim headliner, Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price. I'll have to be going with Nico Price in this matchup. I'd love Robbie Lawler to win. It's his retirement fight. I'd like to see him do well and go out on a high note. But in his last few fights, just haven't seen enough from him to pick him confidently in this matchup. Um, Nico Price hasn't looked super impressive in his last fights either, but he's younger, he's faster, he's got a bit more power at this point in his career, and I think he's just a better fighter at their levels right now than Robbie Lawler. If this fight was taking place in Robbie Lawler's prime, then he would have absolutely smoked him. But it's kind of gotten to a point. I think he's like 40. He's gone downhill a little bit. It's kind of been sad to see. But I do think that Nico Price should win this fight. I don't want Robbie Lawler to get finished. I could see Nico Price TKOing him. I don't see him getting knocked out, which is good. That would never be a good retirement, like with Frankie Edgar. And I think it's good that the UFC haven't done him too dirty here, and they haven't given him too much of a ridiculous um, matchup that's just impossible for him to win, and he's going to get starched. So I think it's good here for him. He definitely has a chance of winning. He's like a 2-1 underdog. I'd love to see him go out there and get a knockout. This is one of my predictions that I actually do want to be wrong on. But if I'm having to pick the guy who I think is actually going to win, I've got to pick Nico Price. Coming off that fight against Phil Rowe, looked okay in that matchup. He ended up losing, I believe, but didn't look too bad. But Robbie Lawler, been quite a while off. He was meant to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio last December, but had to pull out of that matchup. Before that, lost to Brian Barberena by TKO in the second round, and that was last International Fight Week. So it's a year layoff for Robbie Lawler. And I think he's just going to lose this matchup. I think he's just not going to be fast enough to keep up with Nico Price. I'm just checking Nico Price's record as we say this. Yeah, I just don't think he's fast enough to keep up with Price. Right now, I think Price is going to have just more pop on his shots, just be moving around quicker, and it's not going to be too easy for Lawler to catch him with anything notable. He's coming off a loss to Philip Rowe. Before that, he beat Alex Oliveira, lost to Michelle Pereira, no contest with Donald Cerrone, lost to Luque, beat James Vick, lost to Jeff Neal, beat Tim Means. Like, his wins are decent wins, and his losses are well-known names who aren't bad losses to have. Robbie Lawler, though, in his recent fights, as I said, the loss to Barberena. Before that, he beat Nick Diaz, but Nick Diaz looked slow and terrible in that fight. So I just don't see this as a really favourable matchup for him. Yeah. lost to Brian Barberena, beat Nick Diaz, lost to Magny, lost to Colby, lost to Askren, lost to RDA. So he's been on a slide, and I think he's going to lose this fight. But moving on to the main card, Bo Nickel versus Woodburn. This is taking Bo Nickel. This is a really late notice matchup. Valentine Woodburn, 7-0 fighter. He's undefeated, but again, he's been like not fighting that high level of opposition. Bo Nickel should win this fight by first round submission. He's a massive favorite. He's like a minus 2,000. And I honestly think those odds are justified. He should absolutely steamroll through this Valentine Woodburn guy who I do not know. This fight was made today, so I've had no opportunity to do any research, but I can tell you his record right now: decision, TKO, KO, TKO, KO, KO. So, but he's fighting cans. Like his opponent, his most recent opponent, who he took to a 3-round decision, Luis Sergio Melo Jr. Has a record of 30-17. So that's not terrible. Before that, Wesley Almeida, who he also took to a decision. Um, and that guy had a record of 17-9. So he's just not fighting high level opposition, and he's not even like his most recent TKO was in August 2021 against Brad Johnson, whose nickname is Boss Hog. So that should tell you all you need to know. And this guy's got a record of 3-4. So he's not fighting high level opposition. Bo Nickel should steamroll him and win this fight by submission in the first round. The fact that this is going to be on the main card over Lawler and Nico Price is somewhat embarrassing, to be honest. I think especially at the press conference, given that the whole main card's on this press conference. I know they want Robbie Lawler, so I know they want Bo Nickel on the press conference, but no one is going to ask this Valentine Woodburn guy a single question. No one's going to give a hell about him. And he should lose this fight comfortably by submission. Bo Nickel coming off the win over Jamie Pickett in his debut, got the kind of debut nerves out of the way, got a first round sub, struggled with the takedowns a little bit initially, ended up kind of like groin shotting him and then getting a takedown. But his ground skills are legit, and he's shown to be much better than any Valentine Woodburn guy who's taking 3 and 4 fighters to a decision and taking 17 and 11 fighters to the third round and all that kind of stuff. So we should see a pretty comfortable win for Bo Nickel. Um, if Valentine Woodburn wins, then no one's going to pick him, and it's going to make no sense. But anyway, moving on, up the card, Jalen Turner versus Dan Hooker. Um, Another prediction that I do kind of want to be wrong on. I am taking Jalen Turner to win this fight by a TKO. I think he's going to get a TKO in the second or third round. Dan Hooker's just shown to be so much slower and just so much less there since his Dustin Poirier fight. After that fight, he really kind of went downhill. Got KO'd by Michael Chandler, lost to Islam Makhachev, beaten Nasrat Haqparast, lost to Arnold Allen, and then coming off a win over Claudio Puelles. But that's Claudio Puelles who has one skill, and that's him and I rolling and going for leg locks. And when that doesn't work, he's got no stand up. So Dan Hooker, he's not terrible anymore. Like he's still decent, but I think Jalen Turner's just shown to be really good in his last 2 fights. He arguably beat Mateus Gamrot on damage. That fight went the distance, and that was on short notice as well. He before that he beat Jamie Malarkey. He beat Brad Riddell. Like he's got some good wins on his resume. Beating those Australia New Zealand fighters as well. So Dan Hooker's another one of those. Could take out the final challenge, I guess, the final boss of the CKB team of the Aussie ANZ team. And I think he's just quicker and just more powerful. For once, Dan Hooker's not going to have a reach advantage. You could say the same for Jalen Turner as well. He's usually the guy with like a 6-inch reach advantage. I don't think it's that much in this fight. But yeah, he's quicker. He's younger, more on the come up than Dan Hooker, who's hit his prime and is starting to go down, I believe. Jalen Turner though, like he's shown to be really good. That Gamrot fight, even though he did lose, yeah, before that, Vidal Malarkey, Urs Medic, Brock Waver, Josh Gulabau, and he's got a loss to Matt Frivola and Vicente Luque, and that's about it. So I don't see Dan Hooker KO him in this matchup. Hooker hasn't shown much power in his recent fights. Like he TKO'd Claudio Puelles with a body kick, but that's like this guy was ready to be out of there. Jalen Turner, much better fighter. He's more hungry, looking to come up. He knows he had a really close fight with Gamrot, which he arguably won. Gamrot was just spamming takedowns, and I don't see Dan Hooker having success with the wrestling in this matchup. He could mix it up, but Jalen Turner he did defend takedowns. That's the thing though. Jalen Turner defended a lot of the takedowns from Mateusz Gamrot, but Gamrot just shoots over and over again, kind of like a Marab, and then you just get no space to do anything. So I think Jalen Turner should win this matchup. I think he's gonna be popping him a range, using his reach advantage in this fight, and I think he's gonna just catch him with a big shot. Rock Dan Hooker in the second round, and then I think he's going to put him away with ground and pound. And it's going to be tough for Dan Hooker. But I think that's what's going to happen. I do think Jalen Turner should win this fight. But anyway, moving up the card to the third fight on the main card, the feature fight, Robert Whittaker versus Dracus du Plessis. I do think Robert Whittaker should win this fight very easily. I'm picking him to school Dracus du Plessis and either win a clear 30-26 decision or get a TKO in the third round. Robert Whittaker is a much better fighter than Dracus du Plessis. It's very easy to see that. If anyone who's picking Dracus du Plessis, you're kind of just assuming that he might catch Rob with something, because there's no way that he outclasses him over 3 rounds. And I don't see a way that he grapples and submits Robert Whittaker. So I think what he's got to do is kind of just get it into a brawl, get it into a dogfight, and just try and catch him with a big shot. But even that I don't see happening. Just because Robert Whittaker went 50 minutes in a brawl with Yoel Romero. He fought Yoel Romero twice in a brawl and came out on top both times. Like, he's had wars. He's fought Gastelum, fought Till, fought Izzy twice, fought Vitor, fought Cannonier. Like, he's fought everyone, and I just don't see Dricus du Plessis being on the same skill level as those guys and being able to cause him as the problems that those guys did. Dricus isn't as powerful as a Yoel Romero. He's not as quick or as accurate as Israel Adesanya. He's not a southpaw like Darren Till. He's not as tough as like Kelvin Gastelum, maybe you could say. Like, I just think anything that Dricus brings to the table here, Robert Whittaker's seen it already and he's dealt with it and he's beaten already. So I just really don't see Dricus having that much success in this matchup. Robert Whittaker should just be picking him apart at range with the jab, that oblique kick, that high kick, and I think he's just going to put on a very dominant, easy performance, kind of like the Marvin Vettori fight, where a slower first round, had a few shots landed on him. I think Dricus will land a big shot at some point in the fight, but I don't think it's going to be devastating enough to end the fight. I think Robert Whittaker has shown a pretty decent chin. I don't see he's taken shots from Yoel Romero. I don't see Dricus du Plessis putting him out. Maybe somehow Dricus has just amazing cardio now that he's got his nose fixed or something, and it's going to be a new mythical fighter. But still, I just think Robert Whittaker's so much better everywhere. He should win this fight easily. If he doesn't, then I'll be very surprised. Like, if Dricus is just somehow good, because we've seen him, he's like, in all of his fights, he's not good. Like, he looks shit, but he just somehow does enough to win every time. But I just don't see that style, of like that kind of weird drunken fist sort of style of like moving around weirdly and being kind of like sloppy with your movements and stuff. I don't see that working on Robert Whittaker, who's very defensively sound for the most part, unless he's Israel Adesanya that he's fighting. Um, Dricus has never been that powerful, or so not that powerful. He's never been that precise with his shots. He doesn't snipe people. He kind of comes forward, lunges in with combinations, and tries to land a big shot. I think if he lunges in against Robert Whittaker, he's just going to get countered. And I think he's just not going to be in for a good time here. I think Rob is better everywhere. I think Rob's a better grappler. He's a better striker. He's got better cardio, better technique. All of the above. I think the only thing that Dricus might have is maybe more power, and maybe a better chin. But I don't even see this fight being a brawl. But even if it ends up being a brawl, I think Robert Whittaker has been in enough fights like that with Yoel and Gastelum and Cannonier, that he's just going to know how to deal with it. And over 3 rounds as well, he's used to fighting 5-rounders. Over 3 rounds as well, I think he's going to be able to have a lot more output, Not worry about his cardio at all. Dricus has only been fighting 3 rounders. That's what he's used to, so it could advantage him a little bit, but I still just don't really see anything going here for Dricus 2+C. I'd love him to win because I want him to fight Izzy because I think that'll be a really interesting build-up, even though I think he's going to get smoked by Izzy if he fights him. But just for the build-up, and because that fight's apparently going to happen in Sydney, which is just a few k's north of where I live. So I'd love to go watch that. I'll fly up to Sydney if that fight gets made there for that UFC 293 card. If not, it's probably going to be Strickland, or maybe Rob could fight, but usually Rob takes a bit of time and doesn't turn around super quick. So anyway, picking Robert Whittaker to win dominantly, I'll rate Dricus' toughness. I think Robert Whittaker will win a decision here, 30-27 or 30-26, maybe with a 10-8 round. But yeah, I just think Robert Whittaker's going to win this fight too easy. Dricus should have tried to fight an easier opponent to get a title shot. Respect to him for taking the hardest fight apart from Izzy, but this isn't the fight that he's going to win to get a title shot. I think he should have looked for a Strickland or a Costa or like a Cannonier even. Maybe he would have lost to Cannonier or a Vittori. I think a Vittori would have been a much easier, much better fight for him to win to get a title shot. But anyway, he's fighting Robert Whittaker, and I think he's going to lose. But respect to him. But moving on though to the co-main event, Brandon Moreno versus Alessandro Pantoja. Really good fight here. Flyweight title fight on the line. Really, really looking forward to this one. It's going to be a super technical fight. Super high level. Really going to be fun to watch. The grappling exchanges in this, the striking exchanges are going to be super fun. Obviously, this is a rematch or a third fight, depending on if you count tough or not. It's the second official fight that these two guys have had. And Pantoja won dominantly the first time they did. Won a really clear decision, 30-26, I believe it was. Dominated Pantoja dominated Moreno in the first round. Sorry, he got a 10-8. Got his back, was beating him up, landing well on the feet. But that was a while ago, and I think Brandon Moreno has evolved past then for us to be relying on that fight as our predictions. I'm still actually going to be picking Pantoja though. I've been thinking about this. I've been watching some tape of him recently. I've been watching obviously all the Moreno Figueiredo fights. And I just think something about it. I've just got a vibe that Pantoja's going to win. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I'm just getting the vibe. I think he's just gonna pressure Moreno. I think, and he's gonna get a submission. I don't know. Something about it. I just think the way these two match up, I think it just favors Pantoja. I think he's gonna be good enough on the feet. I think Moreno is definitely a much better fighter on the stand up, but I think Pantoja is gonna be good enough on the feet to not just get pieced up. And I think he's just gonna pressure Moreno and just walk forward with his high guard and just throw a few shots and just try and get in close and cause a scramble. And I think once he causes a scramble, Pantoja has shown such a good ability to take the back and get those submissions. Like, he's taken the back of pretty much every opponent he's fought. Even though he lost to, like, Askar Askarov, he took his back in that fight. He submitted Brandon Royval, submitted Alex Perez, like, beat Manel Cap over 15 minutes in a striking match, which is really impressive to see. Because Manel Cap is a really good striker. So that fight there with Manel Cap aids to my confidence that he's not going to get absolutely torn up on the feet. I think Pantoja's good enough to. Don't get me wrong. If this fight stays standing, Moreno is going to win. But I just something about it. I really don't know. Pantoja though, like last fight against Perez, just walked forward into him, threw a few shots, and then bam, scrambled, took his back, got a submission with a minute 30 into the fight. Like stuff like that is crazy. How well he can just cause chaos and cause scrambles. Like the Royval fight, they had some crazy exchanges. He knocked out Matt Schnell as well. He's got some really impressive wins on his resume. His only losses recently are Askar Askarov back during COVID, and then he lost the decision to Figgy, but that was before the whole Figgy and Moreno quadrilogy. That was before all of that. That was when Figgy wasn't completely dead to make flyweight. And so I don't think that fight matters as well. I don't know. I think the style of Moreno as well, the stand up. I think Pantoja's going to catch him a few times there. I think Pantoja is also going to have the mental advantage here, knowing that he's beat him twice already. He subbed him once, dominated him the second time. I think Moreno's going to have that in the back of his mind. I think he's going to be a bit scared to engage in the grappling. And he's going to be focusing so much on keeping this fight standing that it's going to be like leave openings. He's going to be really focusing on the takedowns, making sure he's not getting taken down, or he'll be super worried about getting his back taken. Because when Pantoja takes your back, it's most of the time it's a wrap. So I see him really having success in the grappling here. He's just he's the one with the best scrambler in the flyweight division, and probably got some of the best jiu-jitsu in the sport right now. Yeah, again, I don't know. I really can't explain it. Just something about this fight. I'm just getting the vibe that Pantoja's going to win. I really don't know. Like, sometimes do you, like, am I wrong here? Do you guys not just, like, sometimes get the vibe you're going into a fight and then you'll just go, like, damn, I just think this guy's going to win. Like, something about it, just think he's going to win. Like, Moreno is a favorite here, which is a bit weird to see. Like, I don't hate him being a favorite, because it means if I get this right, I've got an underdog title fight pick, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know. Just the stand up of Pantoja has shown to be pretty good. Moreno looked really good in his last fight against Figueiredo, but I think as Figueiredo went on in that quadrilogy, he was just getting a bit worse. Like he showed no evolvements, like no improvements from that third fight to the fourth fight. He was been taking like a year off in between fights. And he spends half his camp as weight cutting instead of just training. Which I think costed him in that matchup of not being able to really hone in on his skills and improve greatly. And Moreno was just able to just improve and figure out where he was going wrong. Like he lost the third fight, really close. He was getting cracked though by Figueiredo. I think he could get cracked by Pantoja. I don't see him getting put down. I think Figgy's the guy that's got power like that. No one else in the flyweight division. Um, but even like Figgy was getting caught by shots from Moreno, and I think Moreno's not the hardest puncher. Like he hits hard, don't get me wrong, but Figgy's chin was getting like really affected by that weight cut, and I don't know something about it. Like Moreno, he's been fighting the last, apart from Kai Kara France in a rematch, he's fought Figueiredo 4 out of his last 5 opponents. Pantoja's been fighting um like different guys all the time in different styles, improving everywhere. Moreno's just been kind of honing in on this one guy of how to beat Davison Figueiredo. Um, but yeah, again, I really don't know. Just something about this fight. I just think Pantoja's going to win. Let me just check his record. He's 25-5, so he does have losses. So does Moreno though, but they're all decisions. Pantoja's never been finished. I don't think Moreno's going to finish him. If Moreno wins this fight, I think it'll be a decision. But like, it's coming off Alex Perez submission, Brandon Royval sub, Manel Cap decision, a close decision to Askar Askarov, which was a really close fight. KO over Matt Schnell, decision loss to Figgy, Wilson Reyes TKO, a submission, and then that back in 2018, that decision win over Brandon Moreno. Um, yeah, just something about this. I just think in the mental, I want to kind of see how they both looked. How they're both kind of giving off the vibes at the press conference, but Pantoja is just a savage guy, and I think he's on a mission here to win the belt. Moreno's won the belt twice now. Like he's kind of been up and down with that feeling. Like he had the draw with Figgy, beat him. That was his high point. Lost the belt again, won the interim belt, then won the undisputed belt back. But I think Pantoja is going to be just hungry for this belt, and I think he's gonna take his back. I think they're gonna be in the stand up for most of it. I think he's gonna be like a little bit back and forth in the first round. Brandon's gonna be moving around with this kind of weird weird little style that he's got, like with his like chin up like this and doing this weird kind of shit. You know that style that I'm talking about. And I think the first round's gonna be like pretty even on the feet. No one's gonna be throwing too much. I think Moreno is gonna catch him with a shot. I think Moreno will definitely have success in this fight on the feet. But then I think Pantoja is just going to like kind of charge at him and just cause a scramble. He's going to, like Perez, watch that Alex Perez fight. He just kind of walked forward at Perez. It was really weird to see. Just walked forward, threw punches, kept his chin down, and then caused a scramble. And then immediately took his back. He's so good at taking the back. I just think he's going to get it in this fight. And I think once he gets the back, I just think he's going to submit Brandon Moreno. Um, Moreno's really tough. I can see him going out in a choke. I can see him not tapping, and I can see him going unconscious. Um, I don't want to like kind of will this into reality, but something about this fight, I just think Pantoja's going to win. So yeah, that's my pick. So moving on though to the main event, um, Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. This is the fight that we're all looking forward to. unification bout for the featherweight belt. Volkanovski coming off the really close win over, or really close loss, sorry, over Islam Makhachev in Perth. Again, I was at that event. Yair also coming off the KO win, or the submission win over Josh Emmett, where he was landing some big shots on the feet and almost TKO'd him. I think this is a really favourable matchup for Volkanovski stylistically. I think there's a lot of danger that's offered here for Volk with the head kicks of Yair. I think there's definitely a possibility that he gets cracked, and I think the first round is where Yair Rodriguez is gonna have to do his best work here. I'm just trying to figure out this lighting right now. Sorry, the fucking sun's in my eyes. But yeah, I just think I got to talk about this properly now. Yair Rodriguez, such a really dynamic kicker, dynamic striker. I can see him, as I said, I can really see him catching Volk here. I think there's a big worry for that in this matchup. But I think it's got to be the first 2 rounds, or I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's got to just set Volkanovski up with a head kick or a flying knee. Volkanovski does have a tendency to lean into head kicks and block with only one hand. He sometimes blocks cross body or blocks like this. And against Yair, I can see the impact of that getting through. He got dropped by a head kick against Max Holloway in the second fight. Obviously, we know there was a bit of controversy there. Volkanovski got woken up by USADA, all of that. Makhachev caught Volk with a head kick, just this one hand block, of defending head kicks against Yair, who's such a dynamic, powerful kicker, is not something I'm a fan of. And the fact that Volkanovski is shorter as well, it does worry me in this fight. It really does worry me in this matchup that he could lean in, just be get baited for a body kick and just get caught, cracked on the and put down by a head kick. I don't see him getting flatline KO'd. I think he could get just wobbled. But Volkanovski's recovery time has shown to be really good. He's when he got rocked by Islam, he recovered quickly. Got dropped by Holloway in the second fight, he recovered quickly. Yair, last fight, very impressive, looked really good against Josh Emmett. But again, Josh Emmett is just a different kind of style to Alexander Volkanovski. I think Volk in this fight, this fucking sun, man, is lighting. Volkanovski in this fight, he's just such a more cerebral fighter. He throws all of his weapons. Josh Emmett's only really been a guy to throw left hooks and right overhands. I really apologize for this. This is pissing me off. Josh Emmett's only been a guy to kind of throw those left hooks, right overhands. Very one-dimensional fighter. Quite easy to read. What the fuck? Quite easy to read. And I think Yair, that was a really favourable matchup for Yair, where he had that range in the fight, and he could just crack Josh Emmett quite comfortably, at range and just pick at him with the kicks and hurt him with the body kicks. Volkanovski, though, he's a way better fighter than Josh Emmett, and Josh Emmett also just fought Ilia Topuria as well and got dominated over 5 rounds. So it's not like Josh Emmett is the number one best opponent to be able to have wow, what an impressive win. Don't get me wrong, he did it really impressively, and he looked really good in that fight. Before that, that fight with Brian Ortega, kind of weird ending, and before that, the loss over Max Holloway, over 5 rounds, in their fight in 2021. So yeah, especially in that fight as well, he Yair, he was doing well in the first few rounds, doing well in the striking. One sec. Sorry, I'm back. But yeah, in that Holloway fight, he was doing well, having success in the first few rounds. But as the fight went on, and he wasn't putting Holloway away, and he was doing well on the stand up. Obviously, that's his path to win here. But then in the third and fourth round, he was taken down and dominated by Holloway on the ground, and that's just not something that I like to see. That I think is gonna help him in this fight. Volkanovski's a much better grappler than Holloway, much stronger, more dominant on the ground than Holloway. So Volks escapes those first 2 rounds. I think he's just really going to take over in the fight with the grappling, with the takedowns, with his strength as well is going to be a big thing here. If he gets Yair to the ground, and Yair's plan is to just kind of try and stay there and just throw up kicks and throw triangles and stuff, he's not going to submit Volkanovski. Volkanovski survives 2 incredibly deep submission attempts from Brian Ortega, so I don't see him escaping. I see him escaping Yair's submission attempts. But Yair is just so extra on the ground. Like, he puts out so much effort off his back to like throw shots, try and get up and stuff. If he does that and just doesn't succeed, he's gonna like gas himself out. I think he's really got to be more patient. Like, he just spazzes out on the ground and just throws triangles up, throws like elbows and stuff. He exerts so much energy off his back. Um, I think Volk's just going to hold him down and just punch him in the face if he does get him down. Even on the stand up, I think Volkanovski with the kicks as well. There's nothing more that a kicker hates than another kicker to just kick, like, interrupt them. Um, like Yoel Rodriguez, his last opponents, like, okay, let's go through his last opponents. Josh Emmett, Max Holloway, Ryan Ortega, Korean Zombie, Frankie Edgar, BJ Penn. Um, I might be forgetting someone, but those are his last Jeremy Stevens, no, not Calvin Cater, but those are his last opponents. And you want to know what all of those guys have in common? They're in stand up wise, they're all boxers, and none of them really kick that much. Max Holloway kicks a little bit. But pretty much all of his last opponents that he's beat, and Holloway, who he lost to, they're all boxers, and they really don't mix in the leg kicks or the body kicks that much. You know that the last opponent the Yair fought that had kicks, but really kicked effectively was Alex Caceres, and he took him to a split decision. Um, in that matchup, Yair really kind of when they're on the front foot, moving forward trying to kick you, or even on the back foot, and then you're just kicking them, it interrupts them. And also, if you're getting heavy leg kicked, that's going to slow you down. That's going to slow down your explosivity with your kicks as well. And so I think Volk's leg kicks, the inside and outside leg kicks in this matchup, are going to be a big thing for him. And I think on the feet, he's just going to be sticking and moving. I think once he gets caught with a big shot in the first, I'm predicting Volkanovski to get either dropped or rocked with a head kick in the first round. But I think he's going to recover. Yair hasn't really shown the best ability to finish off fights when he hurts guys. Like, he was cracking Josh Emmett. So that's one. But before that, like, Zombie, he got late. He didn't like didn't finish Ortega on the feet. Um, Jeremy Stevens, he cracked him with a big shot, caught him with a body kick, had him like hunched over. Jeremy Stevens was really badly hurt in that fight, and then he couldn't really finish him that quickly as well. So I think Volkanovski will recover. I think he'll allow him to recover, and then I just think Yair is not going to have the energy expenditure and the ability, the pace or the power anymore after those first 2 rounds to keep up with Volk. I think Volk's going to just start pulling ahead, landing the jab really well. Yair's offensive striking is probably some of the best in the sport. I'm just going to say that now. His offensive striking is amazing to watch, and it's like top 3 in the sport right now. But his defensive striking is a big concern for me, and it's definitely a big concern in this fight. Like, if you look at the Holloway fight, he's getting cracked and tagged by Max Holloway. He's got a granite chin, so he wasn't getting rocked by him. But like, I think Volkanovski is a better fight. We've clearly seen Volkanovski is a better striker than Max Holloway. So I think he's going to be landing those straight punches down the middle. Yair's guard has never been the best. He's never really been good at defending shots. He kind of just relies on his chin and his toughness, which I don't see. I don't see that going well for him in this matchup. I think, yeah, Volk's just going to be catching him down the middle. Obviously, if I don't advise that Volk keeps this on the feet the whole time, I definitely think he is going to mix in the grappling. Like, he fought Frankie Edgar, Yair did, and he got taken down and dominated. So I think, obviously, it's in a much improved version of Yair now. But I think if Frankie Edgar can take you down and dominate you, I do think Alexander Volkanovski is going to do that a lot easier than Frankie Edgar. And I think once Volk's on top of you, it's different. It's not like a Josh Emmett who's just sitting in your guard, who's hurt, waiting to be finished. Like, normally when someone ends up on top of you, it's because they've hurt you. When Emmett ended up on top of Yair, it's because Yair flying near him and then fell down onto bottom. But Emmett was like badly hurt, kind of wanted a bit of a way out there. Wasn't really doing anything to defend the submission, the triangle that he ended up getting submitted with. But Alexander Volkanovski, when he ends up on top of you, it's because of a takedown or it's because of that he's dropped you. And if he drops Yair and he's on top, he's just going to be absolutely unloading ground and pounds. He's got probably the best ground and pound in the sport. He just absolutely hammers guys into the ground with those elbows, those punches from the top. And he's really gonna just wear out and it's exhausting to have someone just throwing punches at you on the ground and you're just trying to defend. It like tires you out. It it's never a good thing. So I think Yair, I can see him getting taken down, and like he got mounted and almost submitted and almost ground and pounded TKO'd by Max Holloway with like hammer fists. Volkanovski doesn't throw hammer fists. He throws full power like overhand like shots onto your face when you're on the ground. Um, so I really do think that's going to be what's happened in this matchup. If I'm giving you just a rough outline again of how this fight goes, first round, Volkanovski's trying to kind of figure out the distance. He's back at featherweight now. He's going to be kind of gauging the speed difference again. Um, Yair Rodriguez is going to be just throwing out those body kicks, leg kicks, and then I think he's going to set him up with a head kick, and Volkanovski is going to do that weird one-hand block that he does, and he's going to get cracked. I think he's going to get wobbled, maybe even dropped, but I think Volkanovski recovers super quickly, and he's going to get back to it. Yair wins the first round 10-9. Second round, Yair's gone for the same thing, but he's just a little bit slower. He kind of expended a lot of energy on a finish. And Volkanovski's more comfortable now. He's landing those straight punches, landing those leg kicks a lot easier, slowing down Yair's movement and his explosivity, and wins the second round close. Third round again, just pulling away more and more, getting takedowns, lands some ground and pound on Yair, and I think that's just going to roll through in the fourth. The takedowns are going to come easier. The resistance is going to be less from Yair as he gets more and more tired. And yeah, and I think Volkanovski, I'll give Yair credit, he's extremely tough. It depends how well Volkanovski shows out and how well Yair shows out. I can see Volkanovski I'm going to pick Volkanovski by fifth round's TKO. Volkanovski decision is a very likely outcome. I think Volkanovski, if it goes to scorecards, it's going to be 49-45. So a 10-8 rounds, he's going to lose the first, but then get a 10-8 round in the fifth. But I can also see him getting a ground and pound stoppage in that fifth round due to a TKO with ground strikes. Volkanovski's going to just stack his guard, be on top of close guard, and just be punching him in the face over and over again. And Yair's going to just not have the energy to shoot up anything, no triangles. He's not going to be like able to throw up kicks and elbows like he will be in the second round. Like when Volk gets the takedowns in the second and third, he's going to really have to be careful on top, and he's going to be taking his time, not going too crazy with the ground and pounds, just kind of landing body head shots like he was against Makhachev, not trying to get swept, not trying to get submitted, not trying to get hit with big shots off bottom. But in the fourth and fifth, his cardio is better than anyone else in the featherweight division, and he's just going to pull ahead. And I think he's going to just win this fight by TKO. Very late. I think he's going to gas Yair out. Yair's going to have just nothing for him, and he's just going to ground and pound him into a late stoppage with about a minute to go in the fight, and retain the featherweight belt and get a fifth title defense. So that's my prediction for this fight. I'm very worried that Volkanovski could get hurt with those head kicks and those flying knees from Yair being shorter. But overall, I think Volk's just that guy. Volk's different. He's different to Usman. He's different to Izzy. I don't see it being like the Edwards fight or the Pereira fight where the long reigning champion gets dethroned and caught with a big shot. I think Volkanovski's better than Usman on the feet, clearly. More defensively sound as well. And I see him getting past the adversity, and I think he knows how to approach fights. Him and his team at Freestyle Fighting and at CKB as well, they prepare so well. He's brought in like a 11-time Dutch like Taekwondo champion or something like that. Got some like really good. They prepare so well and so effectively. Like I don't think you guys like remember the last time. Let's look at his last two fights. He absolutely schooled Holloway 50-45, prepared everything to a T, and Holloway had nothing for him. He just figured out Holloway, which no one else has been able to do, not even Yair. And then his next fight, he pretty much figured out Makhachev. He was so prepared for that, and he came in and arguably beat Islam Makhachev. Like, I think he's just a different kind of level, different kind of guy, and I think he's gonna just win this fight. But that's the card done, guys. Let me know what you thought of the predictions. Give me yours in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video, which should be a post-fight reaction for UFC 290. See ya.